realfixesrealfast.com. You know, sometimes when you're driving, pulling something, maybe a heavy load, and people are telling you you're really pushing that engine, a lot of times people just choose to ignore it and they say, oh, it'll be alright. Well, it's sometimes not alright. That's the case with this engine. So this is not going to be a video so much on the repair, but just about what happened to this engine. This is Steven, one of the guys here at Real Fixes Real Fast, and this is a vehicle he picked up on his own, so I'm going to let him tell you about it.
This is an engine that I picked up from a 91 Ford Econoline van. It came into the shop with a clear misfire. I was suspecting that it had a dead cylinder, but this is how I came to that conclusion. What I did is, if you pop the hood on a stub-nose van, they're real hard to get to. Pull the intake tubing out of the way, and right there sits the distributor cap. What you do is you just pull each wire off, leave them loose while the engine's off. You don't want to shock yourself. And then whenever you got them all loose, except for the center one, that's a coil wire, you want to leave it plugged in. So what you do is you take a set of insulated pliers on the handles and you pull each wire off until you find the cylinder that's not contributing to combustion. And in this case, it was the number 8 cylinder, which is right here. Now what I mean by not contributing to combustion is I pulled that wire off for the number 8 cylinder and the sound did not change in the engine. It just still had that chug 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 misfire. Any other one that you pull off, you could hear a noticeable change in the engine idle. In order to find out to get to this cylinder, you take off the valve cover. And there's 6 7/16 bolts holding the valve cover down on any small block Ford. Pull the valve cover off, and you'll notice rocker arms. You'll notice that these 2 rockers are already removed. Now the reason that they're removed is we did what's called a leak down test. And the reason why we took them off is to load the springs. You want all the preload tension off of the valves. And that means the springs are completely up. The rocker's not holding them down at all. So the valves are closed as tight as they'll go. What you do is this is the end of a compression tester. You'll take the spark plug out, you screw this down the spark plug hole. You take a compressed air source like a shop air hose, hook it up to the end of the compression gauge. What that'll do is that'll force air into this cylinder. And you have one guy listening to the intake side and one guy listening to the exhaust side. Now if you have an exhaust valve problem, which is right here, you'll hear air coming out of the exhaust. If you have an intake valve problem, you'll hear air coming out of the throttle body. In this case, we had neither one. So I pulled the PCV valve out, and you could hear it coming through the PCV valve. So what that means is that there's air blowing by the piston and the cylinder rings, which is causing it to come out the PCV valve. Now here at Real Fixes Real Fast, just like always, we want to get evidence. We don't want to just assume something's wrong. We want to see the problem. Now what we did is this is a bore scope. It's a Snap-on brand bore scope. Any brand would work. It's got a little light at the end so you can see down inside the bore.
This particular bore scope allows us to actually take pictures or movies of what we're doing. So you can see right here, we're actually starting at the spark plug hole, and we're going to go down into the spark plug hole and look inside. It's a little bit dark, don't have a whole lot of light here. You can see the scars on the piston wall. There's scratches in there. And as we go on down a little bit deeper, you can see something that doesn't look quite right here. We turn it around a little bit and try and get our lens just right on it, and you can see you're actually looking at the ring. You can see where part of the piston, where that ring is supposed to go, is actually missing. It's all burnt off and blown away. Right here you can see scratches on the cylinder wall. Now what you're looking at right here is the actual ring. You can see where the ringland part of the piston is actually just broken away, either burnt away or broken away, and you've got the ring exposed.
Now we know, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that there is piston damage and this engine needs to come apart. Now I've already removed all the head bolts but one. Now here's why. Now, sometimes these heads can get really stuck on, and you gotta stick a pry bar in there and pry, and they'll come off. But sometimes whenever you pry so hard, it'll fall on the floor, it can smash your feet, it can damage the head. So this is what I do, is I'll pull it out and then I'll just screw it back in, a couple of threads. Now what I'll do is I'll take a pry bar and I'll bust it loose that way, and that way it doesn't fall on the floor and crush your feet and damage the head. Now that it's busted loose, you just pull the cylinder head right off.
So now that we got the head off, we're looking right inside. You can see the damage to the top of the piston. The ring land is completely gone and the ring is exposed. Here's a little tip using the borescope when you're looking down a piston hole. Put the piston all the way down to the bottom. That allows the tip of your borescope to have more room to maneuver on the once it's inside the cylinder.
Now you might wonder why the number 8 cylinder leaned out and broke the piston ring land. The reason is because the incoming air and fuel charge, number 8 cylinder is the furthest away from that. So it's the first one to run lean. Lean means it's going to run hot, and what that means is that the rings are going to butt, and when they do, they have nowhere to go, so they have to go up, and it breaks the top of the piston ring land off.
Now if you happen to be a person who's towing, and some mechanic warns you about pulling too heavy of a load with your vehicle, this is why.
So now you know.